Copy of your People Daily on page 6. Also, you can also get your PD straight to your phone. The number that you dial for that is star 550 star 4 hash. It's brought to you by the People Daily and Safaricom. Once again, star 550 star 4 hash, brought to you by the People Daily and Safaricom. You can get it straight to your phone. Let's see what else we have. Front page of the Daily Nation now. Ruto allies face axe in cabinet changes. In a meeting with party leaders Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka, Musalia Mudavadi, Moses Wetangula, and KANU's Gideon Moi, President Uhuru Kenyatta is reported to have discussed a looming reshuffle in his cabinet, offering to include nominees from the opposition in his administration. You can find this on page 4 of the Daily Nation. So the politics of the day also creeping into the executive structure, and the nominees right there from the Daily Nation, that is. You can find the details of that in your copy of your Daily Nation. Also in the Daily Nation, horror at sea, our 22-day ordeal. A boat wreck in the Indian Ocean for 15 cormorants turned into a 3-week ordeal of survival for the fittest, in which 7 who succumbed were thrown into the water to keep the vessel afloat. The 8 survivors ate raw fish and drank salty water until their boat was spotted near the Malindi shore, and they were rescued unconscious. Quite a harrowing tale, this one, and you can find it on page 3 of your Daily Nation this morning. The details of that right there. As we look at that also, taxation issues, cost of living set to rise again. Kenyans will pay more for bottled water, fuel, beer and juice starting October, after the taxman raised the rate of excise duty on these particular commodities in line with the jumping inflation recorded during the past year. So we've heard it severally from even the CBK governor, Njoroge, that we might have to tighten our belts moving forward, and these are the signs of the times. You can find that in your copy of your Daily Nation. On matters, Justice Mwilu on trial, court told of 20 million shilling deals. The court was told that the Deputy CJ engaged in suspicious financial activities at the Supreme Court parking lot, her office at the building, and her home in Kilimani, Nairobi, 7 years ago. The DPP says he has a case on this and has evidence to present before the court. You can find this on page 12 of your Daily Nation this morning. Let's see what else we have in your papers. Front page of the Standard now. Inside Uhuru's bid to unite Raila and the One Kenya Alliance, though State House statement was short on details of Uhuru's talks with Raila and the One Kenya Alliance leaders, we learned that they discussed need for unity of purpose, but were non-committal on a single flag bearer. And therein definitely lies the issue. Who's going to cede ground for one of them to take that particular mantle? You can find that in your copy of your paper this morning in your Standard. And even as that happens there, right on the other side within ODM, you betrayed me, says Odinga as he kicks out Kingi. Orange Party leader describes Kingi's push to set up a coastal party as betrayal from a person I raised to fame. That's a quote from the party leader as the governor is stripped off Kilifi ODM chair post. This can be found on page 6 of your Standard, the details of that right there. Like I mentioned, the DPP talking about having a big dossier on DCJ Mwilu. Nordin Haji claims he has damning information on the Deputy CJ during a court hearing where Mwilu was accused of taking the JSC in circles over petitions. You can find that on page 12 of your Standard, the details of that right there. Still, even as we get into this term proper as far as education is concerned, refund extra fees, school heads told. In a tough circular, the government has ordered all secondary school principals who had overcharged their students to refund the extra fees after cries of exploitation by desperate parents. This is the story you can find on page 10 of your Standard, and therein also has a critical issue with the CS and the ministry is talking about no extra levies being charged. But right on the other side, school heads saying that they need these particular levies in order to keep the institutions operational. And there you have it, a tough statement from the ministry. Will they capitulate and do what needs to be done? We'll wait and see. But you can find the details of that story in your copy of your Standard. On to the front page of the Star now. 2022 is yours to lose, Uhuru tells opposition chiefs. New alliance and single presidential candidate in the offing. You can find that on page 4 and 5. Question is, who really will be that single presidential candidate out of these? Because what we do know so far, every one of these leaders feels this is their time and this is their best chance. So who sacrifices that particular chance for one of them to go forth? This is what most political analysts are looking at, and you can find it in your copy of your Star this morning. Also in the Star on matters politics, Jubilee instilling fear in critics, says Deputy President William Ruto. who is also the deputy party leader in Jubilee. You can find that particular story right there. In matters health, even as you look at the COVID situation right across the world, there's also a silver bullet in the offing, and this is big news in health circles. All-powerful HIV vaccine to be tested beginning this month, and this could definitely be a game changer as far as this is concerned. You can find it on page 3 of your Star with the details of that right there. Let's also see what we have finally on the front page of the Business Daily. Beer, fuel, border price to rise in new tax. Taxman says excise duty on the products to increase 4.97% in line with average annual inflation. You can find that in your copy of your Business Daily right there. And of course, just talking about how cost of living is set to rise because of commodity prices right there. Touching on fuel touches every single other commodity. So as they're saying, might be time to tighten our belts. So at a glance, that's what you're waking up to as far as your papers are concerned. You'll be looking at that as well, but also looking at the governance scorecard. Where are we standing as far as governance in the country is concerned? I have a very able panel to go through that particular discussion. Welcome to the Morning Review. Welcome back, of course. So as we get into this particular conversation, love it when you're part of it as well. You can get me on Twitter at @IamJeffMote or at K24TV. Let me get to my panel, both in studio and without. In studio, Hesbon Owila. He's a media and political communications expert. Morning, Hesbon.
Morning, Jeff.
Karibu sana, welcome to the show.
Sante sana.
Thanks for making time this morning. Also joined for the first time on the show, Professor Washington Okeyo. He's the CEO of the Management University of Africa. Morning, Prof.
Morning, Jeff.
Karibu sana, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much,
Thanks for making time to be here as well.
I'm grateful.
Asante sana. Also on joining the conversation via Skype from Naivasha, Millie Luanga, a governance expert as well. Morning, Millie.
Good morning.
Karibu sana, welcome to the show. Thanks for making time to be here, gentlemen, lady. Let's just, as always, get right to it. Seems like it's one big story across our front pages this morning, and it's the meeting that took place at State House. Uhuru failing to broker this particular NASA unity that he's been trying to put together. How does this come together? Because, of course, Hesbon, as we've seen, the reason why NASA fell apart is because they couldn't agree on who would be the flag bearer. What they did know is that Raila needs to reciprocate the favor that was done. That was one thing they were all clear on. Yet it seems like this is the sticky issue, even as they go to State House to try and sort this. How does this end up from where you stand?
Well, I think it's a very interesting situation that we live in a country where democracy is the kind of political system we profess. And what we are seeing is deals being brokered on the basis of things that are not very clear. If NASA had a deal and the public was not privy to the deal, and the conversations going on is that NASA had a deal that was premised on winning an election, and they did not win an election. So to what extent does that deal stand? If the NASA principles, for instance, supported Raila Amolo Odinga to become the president, and he was supposed to reciprocate, he didn't become the president. And it's a totally different ballgame when you don't win an election, because you came together to win power and then work on retaining that power, in which case then the deal that was brokered was going to be very easy to deal with. But I think, be it as it may, this is not a question of who is endorsed by who. This is a democracy. Even if they were to come together, the question that we may need to ask ourselves, what makes someone a presidential candidate and what makes that presidential candidate win? Mm-hmm. It's about numbers. So I don't think any political leader would be compelled to support people on the basis of history if democracy in itself requires that people compete on issues, and where the numbers follow those issues, numbers go there. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a tricky situation, because the reason why all of them are hell-bent on Raila ceding ground to them and supporting one of them It's simple. Raila has that political clout and will bring the numbers. And I think with Raila's support, we've seen that in the past. You are assured that his backyard is going to vote for you to the last man. But on the other hand, I think Raila is also looking at it in terms of why is it that my numbers matter? You know, that I need to support people because I'm bringing numbers. They've supported me. Maybe their numbers have not been sufficient enough. But I think this time presents a very clear opportunity for Raila Odinga. And I don't think it would be easy for him to cede ground for two reasons. One, in the previous 3 elections, I don't think Raila has managed to access the Mount Kenya region completely to sell his agenda. It has proven to be a lot more difficult for him. And even
there was an event they had there the other day.
I'm coming there. Even in the previous elections, with the support that he has had from the former Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, and Moses Wetangula, he has not managed to penetrate the central region. Not even to get votes, but just to look for those votes. But this time around, I think with President Uhuru having worked with Raila in his second term, I think there is a high likelihood, you know, and we've seen that Raila is now penetrating. And I think for him, it's just a question of getting his message. The rest is now for the voters to decide. And then number two, the gentlemen who want Raila to support them in the last 3 elections have actually ditched Raila at one point or the other. In 2002, you know, Senator Moses Wetangula was not with Raila, so he didn't support Raila. And there is word outside there that he supported Raila in 2013 and 2017 because there was no other option. There was nothing else. There was nowhere else he was going to go. And you know what happened in 2007? You know, were Kalonzo Musyoka and Raila Odinga, you know, to team up together to the end, probably they would have won. But we know what happened. One of them, Peter Katia, and ended up as a vice president. And then in 2013, Musalia Mudavadi decided that he was a presidential candidate enough and soldiered his own way. He didn't support Raila. Now, he came back in 2017 with NASA. He actually came up with the old NASA idea. So from where I see it, even Raila has a feeling that, you know what, we've disintegrated enough times and we've never had that consolidated, you know, opportunity to soldier on as a political front that is formidable. And I think President Uhuru Kenyatta is bringing them together. And this is an opportunity that they should actually seize.
Okay, Prof, you know, even as you talk about an opportunity that needs to be seized, the last time former PM Raila Odinga pronounced himself on this particular issue of them coming together as NASA, he presented what was called his irreducible minimums. Wanted primaries to be done, all of them to decide on that particular ballot, and disregarded the deal they had as NASA previously. Do you think that changes from this particular meeting and what President Uhuru Kenyatta is trying to do? Do they try and find a common ground, or does everybody just draw their line in the sand and it sticks there?
Yeah, thank you very much, Jeff. I think it is important to realize that politics, the way it is being played in this country, is more from an individual perspective than a people perspective, a citizenry perspective. And I say this because if you compare us with other countries abroad, the developed countries like the US, like the UK, where politics are institutionalized and basically, you know, done based on ideologies, there's a clear pattern of, how people, play their politics, how they campaign, and the issues that they address from a political, campaign point of view. In this country, it is completely different. And that's why when you talk about Honorable Raila Odinga having come up with the bare minimums, is really looking at perhaps more from a historical perspective. And my colleague here has said that he has given the years during which the political developments have taken place, starting from 2002, probably earlier than that, 2007, and so on and so forth, up to the current year. And all these people that we are seeing around the president at the moment are people who have attempted a stab at the presidency at one point in time or other. And they have all, obviously not achieved it. And therefore, for the Honorable Prime Minister to come up and say that he has the bare minimum that has to be met, that is really from his own perspective. But what I would think should happen is that we need to look at what is it that the country needs. And what the country needs then should be what drives the political agenda of the individual. Okay. And we have the economic front. We know very well that our economy has been affected in a very serious way because of various, supervening and intervening forces that are external, to the economy. For example, there is the ongoing COVID-19 situation, the corruption issues that we have amidst us, and so on and so forth. So a lot of, focus should be based on what is it that is ailing the economy and how can we eradicate those situations, at least manage those situations so that they don't overly affect our economy in an adverse manner.
Okay. Yeah. Meli, I'll have you in on this conversation as well. I think you've muted your microphone just in case. We are standing at a point where politics is also a game of optics, and from where we stand, when we see all of these leaders coming together, and in one paper, the Star saying 22 is yours to lose, Uhuru tells opposition chiefs. When you look at the other side and put the shoe on the other foot, it makes the DP seem like the man to beat right now. It almost builds his clout, the fact that all of these leaders have to come together to beat him. What do you think about that narrative?
Very true. And like he's the man to beat. And I think there's been no question about that, with people saying that key horses in the race come 2022 is likely to be Ruto and whoever else will come up from the other coalition. But there are many other things I think that one needs to take into account, even as you think about who is likely to sway the nation's vote towards their favor, to get the 50+1 that is required. And my concern with the DP's camp is that DP seems to be the lone ranger. And that means that when he decides to choose his running mate, because seemingly we may not get to the constitutional amendment process, and therefore the deputy president seat will remain a major determinant factor. Now, whoever he chooses for that will automatically drop off a good number of persons from that bracket. And I say this because he seems to be clearly stating that his running mate is likely to come from the mountain region. And I think that Kenyans have, starting from his own narrative, already been fatigued by the fact that the vote for the presidency seems to rotate around these two regions for a country that is now well into adulthood. So that may again work against him when he comes up with that. And unless he come up with a strategy of how he's going to counter that narrative, it is a difficult one to come out. Now, on the other side, you look at the former NASA team, I think the concern I would have for them is whoever would choose presidential candidate would need to look at their track record, because all these people are senior people, held senior positions in the country, government. What have they done after they left government? What have they done to remain relevant to us, the people? I can see, for example, Musalia Mudavadi at one point was the low opposition voice, particularly after the handshake. He was the one going around speaking and making noise, but nobody seems to be listening much to his noise. It was not bringing a lot of people around him, drawing a lot of support across the country. And that is telling in itself, because whenever politicians speak, people immediately pick up their agenda, it becomes a nation. That's, for me, is something that they need to consider very keenly as they carry their agenda forward. But politics, at the end of the day, we know as a nation that the Constitution requires, thankfully, whoever becomes president must draw in people from different regions. And so far, we can see one team trying to draw in different regions. We can see one team that is struggling to maintain the two regions that have been in control for the last 10 years. So that's something that the optics continues to portray.
Okay, let's talk about that as well. We're getting closer to our first break in probably 3 minutes. We've also seen ODM trying to clean house. We've seen what happened with Governor Kingi right there. And Raila Odinga saying that you betrayed me. I brought you up until this particular point. You trying to start a coastal party is betrayal of the highest order, strips him of his post right there. What do you think that means in terms of the fallout in that particular region? Because he had tried to bring them together, but now it seems like it's no talk, it's cracking the whip now moving forward.
Well, I think it's not really a fallout. You know, every other politician has ambitions, and the ambition is to gain political clout, you know. And it was just basically going to be the end of it, that when Governor Amason Kingi came up with a political party, his position as the ODM chair in Kilifi was definitely going to be untenable, and resignation was the only way out. But then let us look at why, for instance, he had to do all that. If you're a politician worth your salt, what you're looking for is power. This is a governor who is serving his second term. So essentially, the future doesn't look very definite unless he amasses some political clout to ascend to the national level, because that is the next logical step. But if you look at the coastal region, I mean, there is Governor Ali Hassan Joho. So for him to build himself, he had to unshackle himself from the shadows of Governor Ali Hassan Joho. And I think it's the most logical thing that anyone would do, that if you're looking for political clout, you look for space to build it. And if within ODM there wasn't that space, right, I think you give it to Amason Kingi. That was the next best thing to do. And be it as it may, this is a political party that has structures. You cannot champion the aspirations of another political vehicle and still enjoy the perks of a political party that is dominant in the region. So what will happen to Governor Amason Kingi is a question of how does he profile himself as a leader of a political party. But it is true that most of these guys have been mentored by the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, but it doesn't mean that the Right Honorable has to determine how they chant their political life going forward. Okay. They have the right to self-determination.
Prof, we're going to our first break very quickly on this one, because this is not a unique case to Governor Kingi. There are very many other governors who are serving their second term. If the BBI had been passed, probably they'd have another lease of life. But right now with the uncertainty, how are you seeing these second-term governors playing it out? Are we going to have more political parties coming to the fray? Where do they go from here?
Yes, Jeff. I think it is a tricky issue for the governors who are doing their second terms, and therefore are bound to exit, at the end of, 2022. And therefore, they have to start strategizing, if they have not already started strategizing. And I think the issue of Governor Kingi is going to be an issue which is going to play across probably most of the counties that we have, the governors across the counties. And it is because when they look at their political future, they know as far as governorship is concerned, they are done. So they have to look at the next level. And if they will have to remain relevant in politics, then they have to make sure that they are in strategic positions in the various parties that brought them to power. Or if they cannot get to those strategic positions, then they have to start their own parties. But again, starting a party within a period of just 1 year to the elections may be very dicey. Listening to this show, I think yesterday, or another show in a different channel, the registrar of parties, parties, yes, say that there are so many parties that have been registered in the last, few days. I think 10 or so. And that is an indication that people are actually getting upbeat about next year. The question is, are those parties going to gain enough clout to be, relevant come the election time? That is the question. Okay. And I think the governors have to just look at what is the best way possible. They should have started planning earlier on. But if they have not planned, then it is likely that change is going to just, sway them apart. Okay. Yeah.
That'll lead us to our first break on the show, of course. As always, after the break, we'll be looking at your feedback. You can get me at I am Jeff Mote or at K24TV. Look at the governance scorecard, see where we stand with that. Also, memo from head of the civil service yesterday, sending shockwaves right across and people asking, is this right? What does it mean for civil servants' rights as well? Civil servants ordered to take compulsory COVID-19 vaccine jabs. That and more after the break. Don't go too far.